Ready?
3,
2,
2,
1.
1.
Welcome to B-Sides and Beers, episode 80. Tonight we're relaunching our Versus series by digging into the epic battle between... Fuck off. Stop laughing. Okay, I'm going to do this.
I'm clipping here. I'm laughing so loud. Okay.
Okay. I'm going to start again. I'm going to start again. And I'm not even going to fucking look at you guys.
Welcome to the B-Sides and Beers podcast.
Welcome to B-Sides and Beers, episode 80. Tonight we're relaunching our Versus series by digging into the epic battle between SAMMY HAGAR and David Lee Roth. Van Halen versus Van Hagar.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
It worked that time. It worked that time.
Oh, it's good. It's good. Just so everybody knows, Mike's got a double mic sound going on with his mic. So
We are live from the Echoplex.
Echo.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to come out that way in the recording, but it's really fucking weird right now.
yeah,
Sounds great.
it does. Oh, I got tears in my eyes. I'm laughing so hard. What are you guys drinking? What are you drinking, Mike? Why don't we start with you because we can't really hear you. So
All right, let's do this. First one I got is
Just wait. Can you imagine if this is like a meeting and we just sat down with like the stockholders?
it's a big major meeting. It's like a 3-hour meeting.
yeah.
I'm not a cat, I swear.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right. So, first one, Russell Brewing Co. And they have a campfire sandwich stout. It's a 7.2%. And it is a s'mores stout. If I can get the
Delicious.
glare going there or not go in there.
A campfire sandwich. That I've never heard it called that before. Am I missing the boat on that or?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe s'mores has some sort of
Copyright.
legal copyright and they can't use it.
Oh,
on
maybe.
their labeling.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
there you go. It's going to catch on. I like that.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And the other one is from Lighthouse Brewing Co. It is a limited release golden rye IPA at 7%.
Ooh.
Oh.
Yeah, so quite stoked about that one.
Yeah, that looks good.
Hell yeah.
Nice. Where's Lighthouse out of?
Lighthouse is out of, where the hell is that? Victoria.
Oh, yes.
Victoria, BC.
I knew that.
Na 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 na.
Listening with something in the sun. Listen to rock and roll. A Canadian classic.
Do.
Oh, boy.
That's it.
I'll jump in here. Last week I was drinking the Fernie Brewing Co. and I had 2 of the 3 out of the hop trick, and I ended up getting some more because I was giving the IPAs another shot. So, and I like these ones, and this is the one I didn't have last week because I drank them all. So I managed to save one almost. It's almost gone already. But Session IPA, the Slingshot, Fernie Brewing Co. And it's citrusy and refreshing, and it's 4.5, so it's pretty light. And maybe that's why I like it. Maybe I'm realizing I like lighter IPAs. Maybe that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Easy breezy.
Yeah.
So with that lighter alcohol content, is it a lighter hop?
It's sure. Yeah, it's
Hoppy
not as hoppy.
hoppy.
Like as there's another one in there too, and I forget the name now. I featured it last week, but it's like 6.5%, but like super hoppy on that one. But if I could just drink all these kind of weaker IPAs, I dig it. I can do that. So, and then I went old school, just a glitter bomb, a Phillips glitter bomb.
Nice.
Hazy pale ale that I haven't had in a long time actually, since I got the pack that had like 8 in there. So that's what I'm rocking tonight. Dane,
Beauty.
what you got?
Sweet. I just finished a Fat Dog IPA from Driftwood. and they are out of Victoria, I believe. Yeah, popular one here on the island. And you know what? I meant to grab Bus Fight. I had that on a last podcast, I think. And that's a Twin Cities, but I grabbed this one by accident. This is a Mystical Creatures West Coast IPA.
Ooh, I like that. It's like a Muppets kind of where the wild things are kind of thing.
Cryptozoology.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a West Coast IPA, 6%, and brewed by Tin Whistle out of Penticton. So
Tin Whistle.
I've had this before.
They're in touch with us. They wanna
Nice.
get on the show, so we're trying to set that up. Thanks to Kim from Cannery, of course. But
Kim, the best.
yeah, so Tin Whistle's on the list, so that's cool.
Yeah. And then I'll finish it up with a Golden Hour Cranberry Ale from Red Truck.
Yeah. The Red Truck's good, man.
One of my favorites.
Like it's
the
last offerings that they've had are really good.
Yeah.
Okay, boys. David Lee Roth versus Sammy Hagar. This is a age-old question that I've always wanted to talk about. I don't think I've ever sat down and really hashed it out on this. I've got my own thoughts. I got my own feelings, and you talk about it in passing, but I think to frame it and just put it all together in this episode and just tell us how you really feel. And I think by the end, we'll get a consensus as to who's the overall winner in these two. Because I think in the very first episode, I think Corey Hart was the clear winner between the two. So we'll see where
Corey
we're
Hart
at.
was the clear winner.
What's that? Sorry?
Corey Hart over Brian Adams.
Oh, I think Corey Hart won that battle, don't you?
I highly disagree.
Oh, okay. Well, we need to revisit that.
We'll have to do that.
Yeah,
one
revisit.
Way back to episode 1 to figure that shit out.
Yeah. The first. It took us 79 episodes to bring it back, so here we are.
Yep.
Should we set this up a little bit?
Please.
Go for it.
1984, probably the most iconic Van Halen album. I mean, like, if you are not a Van Halen fan, what do you have on there? Jump, Panama, all the quintessential Van Halen songs. And afterwards, I don't know, like, it almost seemed as though there was time for growth. People had egos, other things in the mix, and then we had David Lee Roth split, or was he kind of
He quit.
pushed?
It was a
out?
quit. Yeah.
He quit?
Yeah, he quit.
And that's the thing. I mean,
So
they
it
were
was-
like, one of the biggest bands, if not the biggest band in the world at that time. Eddie Van Halen is the most popular guitar player, bar none. He's hanging out with Michael Jackson and everybody else, right? And you're playing to a sold out festival the year before, tons of people, and then your lead singer quits. And I'm trying to think in the history of like musical history, like I can't think of anything else like that, like where a band was at the height of their fame and their lead singer quit. Maybe the lead singer died or something like that happened. Maybe that's
Or got fired when you look at Sabbath.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff has happened, but quit at the very height of like your fame. I couldn't think of one. I was talking with Nicole and we were like, I can't think of another situation. And even now, we were like, there's not even a group. What's a top like group or band that you could name that'd be like if somebody quit at the peak of their existence? It'd be shocking. And we were like, we can't think of anybody because it's all like singles. It's all like artists now. Right. So,
yeah.
Anyways, a crazy situation to have that, right? And
absolutely
be left with that.
But at the same time, you look at the span, when the first album comes out in 78, then you got 79, 80, 81, 82, 84. That's a lot of years to get fucking tired of each other. First of all.
Oh
And
yeah.
then when you look at David Lee Roth, that he's the quintessential lead singer's disease, where it's his show and it's a battle between he wants it to be his band when it's named after the Van Halen brothers, so it's not your fucking band, and just that's the big thing. I mean, he was one of the greatest frontmen in rock history, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
But just the amount of ego, and he just wanted to take over and run the whole show,
Yeah, and I think when you have very strong personalities and the talent that he's going up against, too, right? It's it's a tough sell,
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, it's Eddie and Alex's band.
Yeah.
And when David Lee Roth goes out and he's at the point where he's shooting album covers by himself without the band for Van Halen. Like, this is my
Awesome.
gig. I'm gonna set up these photo shoots for album covers of just me, but still call it Van Halen.
Yeah. Okay, so keep going, Dave. We got that section, and then what happens after that?
Okay, so David Lee Roth goes on to release Eat 'em Up and Smile. Is that what it is? With a very questionable album cover. I mean, that would not fly today.
Yeah, Eat 'em and Smile, 1986.
Yeah, he hooked up with Steve Vai.
Yes. So
And I would say a solid offering. Van Halen hooks up with Mr. Sammy Hagar. And this was really interesting because I remember being a kid and we weren't necessarily Van Halen fans, but I remember not liking Sammy Hagar. And they released 5150, another iconic album.
Yep.
Absolutely. And it's we can get into this, but these two albums are similar, but also very different depending on how you look at them. So, and Sammy Hagar had a whole bunch of other stuff happening as well.
Which I was kind of shocked at. I didn't really know that. I knew that he, I found out about Montrose later on in my life, and that was cool. But I mean, that was 1972, something like that, right? So
73.
Right. Yeah.
And then you look at Sammy Hagar's, discography pre Van Halen, and he's got 11 albums out before he even joins in their solo work, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So he's no chump, right?
He's been doing this for a while, and then comes in, and he's 37 years old by this point. Joining.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know
joining
that.
Van Halen at 37. Then I'm doing the math, and I'm whoa. And then I look, and he's 75 now. He's 75 years old, born in 47.
Oh, that guy's drinking baby blood because shit.
Yeah.
He was good, man.
I couldn't believe it.
20 years younger.
So, I was doing all the math on it. But anyways, he was very well established before coming into this. But joining the biggest band at age 37, that probably wouldn't fly now either, right?
Nope.
It's some 40-year-old coming in
It's
there.
all sorts
not
of-
a chance.
It's a very different musical world, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think one based purely on talent. I mean, obviously now there's talent, and I think a lot of it is sort of heavily weighted on production and sort of post stuff, where this was raw analog talent.
Yep.
All these guys.
Yep.
They had the stuff. So at age 37, Sammy Hagar was wailing. He was,
Totally.
he was doing his own
He
stuff.
already had
was
I Can't Drive 55. He already had heavy metal. He already had soundtrack songs. He had everything, man. He had already made his millions before he joined. Van Halen.
Yeah. And it was a great pairing. It was like David Lee Roth left and did his thing, and Sammy Hagar just sort of picked things up where David sort of left them, you know?
And
it was...
what other band in history, again, has done that? You know, has replaced the lead singer.
AC/DC.
Good one.
Yeah,
the
totally.
good one.
Yep.
There you go. There's one that I couldn't come up with, but not very common, right? Like pretty much you can lose every other member of the band and keep going and everybody's fine. But the lead singer, it's different. It's different.
Totally.
But I mean, you're talking 5150. I mean, when you compare that to anything else pre that, it's a totally different sound.
Yep.
And it almost like it sounds like the 80s.
Yes.
In 1986,
it does.
right? It's just like, wow, this is a band now in the 80s. And the thing is that's kind of weird, and maybe you guys will agree or disagree with this, but I couldn't really place anything pre 5150 because I'm like, you know, okay, that first album comes out in 78. It's not really 70s. It's not really 80s either, right?
Right.
And it's not hair metal. So it's kind of in its own little genre there. And then, you know, by 1986, you're like, okay, now this is a bit of an 80s band, you know?
Yeah. I mean, they got the synth in there, and
it's the ballads.
That's where it seemed like the ballads as well. Yeah, and that's where like 5150 seemed like a natural progression for me. Like I was like, yeah, okay, here we go. They're same formula. They've just sort of like dialed it into it's definitely 86. You can't get more 86 than that. Like Marty McFly could just fly in on a fucking DeLorean, and then that would be like the pinnacle of 1986. But it's a little. I think what the change that I noticed was it's polished, right? It's a little more polished than the albums previous, and rightfully so. I mean, they're going for it. They want like this is when MTV's on air. There's opportunity to be a rock and roll band and sell Pepsi and whatever the fuck. I mean, they eventually did it with Hagar, right? Like years later. But I think they're understanding there's
It was Crystal Pepsi.
Crystal Pepsi, man.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that shit was great. But I think they understand the opportunities there to become not just the best rock and roll band, but the best band. And they wanted to do it with Sammy Hagar, or maybe they had needed to do it with Sammy Hagar.
Well, it came to a maturity thing. When you look at David Lee Roth, all he wanted to do was continue doing party songs. And Eddie was just getting bored of that. He wanted to change some things. Being the inventor, the super creative cat that he was, you get to a point after 6 albums that you want to do something else. And you have other ideas, and you want to change your sound, and you know the times are changing where it's not cool anymore. When when these things come out, so now you've got 1984, and then David Lee Roth leaves, and he basically starts Van Halen 2 with Steve Vai, because it sounds he got a Van Halen sound. You know,
you got a pretty good replacement, like
totally
no slouch,
totally. Not at all.
No slouch.
But at the same time, he kept that train rolling in that direction with those 2 albums, with Eat 'Em and Smile and Skyscraper, and
absolutely.
And then you get so now they switch off into Sammy Hagar. So you got 5150 comes out, and it becomes their first #1 album. They've never had a #1 album before.
Yeah.
You know, and it has solid songs on it. And to say that Van Hagar didn't have any good songs is mental. It's fucking mental. It just means people haven't put enough time into it. And it's not all ballads. There's a lot of hard hitting tracks on these albums. I mean, Get Enough,
Agreed.
Mine All Mine, AFU, Source of Infection is fucking killer. And then you go to For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, you've got Judgment Day, which is a ripper. You've got The Dream Is Over, which is a ripper. You got Pleasure Dome, which is solid. You got, Run Around, In and Out, hit after that. You got Balance is the same thing, man. It just gets, Seventh Seal, banger. You got Big Fat Money, banger. You got Aftershock, banger. Like, it just... You've got
this is 40-year-old Mike saying that.
No, totally, man. When I started playing guitar in the early 90s, Van Halen was a massive jumping point for their starting point for that.
Absolutely, but you could take or leave Hagar.
Not at all, man. When I come in, okay, so hang on, take the vocals out of the equation. Song crafting, brilliant. Guitar playing, unfucking real.
Yes.
More mature, more interesting passages, more. It's not just, it's super happy fun time. It's now I'm crafting songs, right?
Totally. And I'm going to jump in there because you've said lots of good stuff there and almost kind of read my mind on it because I was talking. I was going to kind of bring up maturity, and I always kind of liked the fact that Van Halen didn't take themselves seriously, right? Like, I thought that was kind of, I liked that whole side of them, and I like that side of David Lee Roth, and I get that you can't do that forever. I totally understand that, right? But it was like, when Sammy Hagar showed up, it was like, Dad's here, like, it's time to get serious with your music, right? It was like, okay, boys, like, let's buckle down now. Like, this is how you do it in the music biz. And they started pumping out the hits, right?
Yeah.
But, it's just that, I guess it's that rock and roll. I think a lot of it is that rock and roll image that David Lee Roth has that Sammy Hagar doesn't have. Right, Sammy Hagar's not jumping off the amps and doing high kicks and like
not the
doing the splits,
doing screams and stuff like that. Like, he's not doing the same kind of stuff that David Lee Roth is in the sense that we know as like the front man, right? But obviously a fantastic front man in his own right, but a totally different one. And I don't know, it felt like, even when you get to 5150, it's serious now. Like, this is like right now, like it's getting to that point, right? Like, it's a totally different band, and I respect that too. I respect that kept going that way, but I don't know. At the time, I would have gone with David Lee Roth, and I wouldn't even have seen the side of Sammy Hagar because it was like, who's this guy coming in here? And now you know more about it, and you know more about him, and you're like, okay, he's cooler. He's cooler than I thought, back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, it just, anyways, it was just like on that maturity side. I was thinking about that earlier because it was like they were a bit goofy back in the day, right? Like, you think of the music videos and like, Hot for Teacher and stuff like that. Like, it was kind of a goofy attitude. Like, even Eddie Van Halen was goofy. Like, it was just...
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, you're in your late teens, early 20s.
Yep.
Of course.
Yep.
And then you get to 86 with 5150, and you want something different. You're grown up now. And I think if they kept with the same trajectory of David Lee Roth Van Halen, we would only be really remembering the first couple albums, and then anything after that.
Yeah.
Because the growth wouldn't have been there.
Yeah. I mean, it needed to happen, I think. And to be honest with you, like, I really appreciated Eat 'em and Smile. Eat 'em up and smile. Yeah, it's a bluesy. There's a lot of sort of blues influence in that. David Lee Roth is on point. Steve Vai is on point.
Yep.
It's a great album, and I would say it's probably my favorite over the two. I mean, like you said, Flip, that Sammy Hagar is cool, and I think the older I am, the more I appreciate who Sammy Hagar is and what he did with Van Halen. But I've always been a David Lee Roth fan. And maybe it's because of the first two Van Halen albums. They are so burned into my memory and what is my classification of rock and roll from such an early age. It's hard to like accept that new singer. But can we talk about Gary Cherone just for a second?
I think we can, and I think we should.
Because I think Van Halen, for whatever reason, they needed another change, right? Is it because there's so much creativity? But Hagar was getting a little bit played out. It was getting too commercial, I think. And they made the right choice. And that was actually, what was the name of that album that they did with them? They only did one,
Van
right?
Halen
3.
Van Halen 3.
Yeah. Which is actually a solid album. It's pretty good.
It is.
Like it's pretty underrated. And I mean, I remember when that that video came out, and it was a huge deal, right? To come and watch the new like singer, new Van Halen.
He's like wearing a toque. He's all like,
he's cutting edge, man.
cool.
Yeah. And I wrote it off right off the bat, right? I was like, oh, come on. But now I went back and listened to that album, and it's good. It's actually very good. But and I heard from what I read, Sammy Hagar, there's a whether or not he quit or whether or not he was fired is depending on who you talk to about that story. Yeah. But from what I read, and I don't know, maybe you guys have heard something different on this, but he said that he was supposed to be back in Los Angeles to record an album, and he was waiting for the birth of his child. And they told him to like get his wife to get a C-section or get induced so that he could hurry up and have the kid and come back because they had like studio booked. And he was like, "No, man, like we're doing a natural childbirth." And then that just started a whole fight, and either was fired or quit or both. So that was the end of that. And Gary Cherone.
Maybe from management, but not from the boys in the band. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. That's what I read on a couple different sites, and I was like, okay, well, this seems to be Sammy's story, but
Well, there was long conflicts too. Once again, going back to being with the same group of cats for how long, how many albums, how many tours. There's shit that goes down either between singer and drummer or singer and guitar player or whatever. Like it's just it either works or it doesn't, and it very rarely works long term anyway.
Right.
I mean, most bands in the existence of bands, they don't last more than 7 years or so. From their debut album to the time that they shut everything down. It's on average it's maybe 7 years by the time they're all sick of each other. And then when you go into Gary Cherone, where it's like, okay, we have this Sammy Hagar sound, now he's gone, okay, let's find someone that sounds like Sammy Hagar, which Gary Cherone very much does,
but in a younger, more hip
package.
Hip, fresh.
I always thought, I don't know if there's any James Bond fans out there, but I always equate him to the George Lazenby of the James Bond series, where he was right between Sean Connery and Roger Moore, and he did a really good job, but it was only one shot, and he never did anything again with them after that, and nobody remembers him after that.
Yeah.
But just like a bad movie that you find on Netflix, like David Lee Roth is back.
Yeah.
This is just like a bad relationship, right? Like,
oh yeah, they just, and how many times did he do it? Like 3 times, I think he had like 3 stints with Van Halen, right? Like,
well, they had the original run for the first till '84, and then he came back for a 40-date tour that they did, and I think they made like $93 million on this quick little 40-spot run, and then he was gone for a while, and then he came back in 2012 to do A Different Kind of Truth. which is a solid album front to back. There's not one song on that album that I ever skip.
And you know what he was doing in his downtime? He was living in Japan, learning Taekwondo or something like that.
He was learning like 4 different martial arts since the age of 12, I think it was.
Right.
So I mean, his whole, the majority of his life has been martial arts. So that's always been part of it. But
boys, it's time for hot facts.
oh, hot facts.
Hot facts.
It jogged my memory, and it's perfect time to bring it in here. During his time in Japan, he starred as a hitman in a short movie. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but he has like one line in it, and he's old. He's old in this movie, but it's like a 4-minute movie. Doesn't actually show him killing anybody, but it's kind of got a Kill Bill feel, like a kind of a Quentin Tarantino kind of feel to it. So if you got a couple extra minutes, check that out.
Yep.
Okay.
While he was in Japan, he spent 300 hours getting tattooed during that time, and invested $7 million in a skincare product that was supposed to protect tattooed skin. But that company closed in 2022, so I don't know. Done on that.
Tattoo.
David Lee Roth worked as an EMT in the early 2000s, and he said, quote, "Not once has anyone recognized me."
That's
I bet.
And Sammy Hagar said in 2022 that David Lee Roth's Van Halen songs are so easy to sing, he could sing them while, quote, lying on his back smoking a cigarette.
Oh,
That is hot facts.
Well, that last one is not a stretch. I mean, Sammy Hagar is skilled enough, and he's sung them enough live that they're relatively the same vocal range for the most part.
He can't do the high, the 1978. Yeah, he can't do those. No way. Some of those, like, I don't even know how he does those. In the 78 album, it's just like the debut one. I don't know how he gets up that high.
He's 18 and high on coke.
book of sugar.
Yep. All of the blow.
Who had more talent?
It's a toss-up. At that point, it's a toss-up where you've got David Lee Roth, super talented, super just a great vocal range. The frontman, when you think of metal rock frontmen, he's easily top 5 of all time. And then you look at Hagar, where he's got the vocal range. He has the song, he's got the song crafting ability. He's got the lyrics. He plays guitar, and he's no slouch at that. I mean, when he was with Van Halen, he wasn't just a rhythm guitar player. He was singing while playing and threw in his own solos live. So,
True.
I mean, he was able to add an extra layer. I don't know. At the end of the day, it comes down to it's Eddie. It's Eddie's band, and from start to finish, it's Eddie.
And maybe that's what
Doesn't
the problem
matter who's
was,
fronting it.
or
It's
not
Eddie.
the problem, right? Like maybe that's where the conflict all happened between all of those guys and Eddie, right? Like that. Maybe that was the toxic part of the relationship. I don't know.
It's Eddie's band, and it's Alex. It's also Alex's band, but I mean, he's still in the back. And if you didn't know that they were brothers and you weren't a huge Van Halen fan, you wouldn't know. It's Eddie's band.
And P.S.
No
a
matter who's
very
fronting it.
underrated drummer. A very underrated one. Like he
man.
doesn't
Yeah.
get enough accolades, but he is solid.
Yep,
Yes.
That's another Dimebag Vinny situation, hey?
100%.
Yeah. It's, to me, I almost look at it like So Eddie is more of the base. He's the base for all of these sort of talented people to come in and out. And it's really nice. I mean, like when we started this project, I sort of went into some albums that I hadn't even really heard before. I mean, 5150 I've definitely listened to, but the David Lee Roth album, I didn't really pay any time, you know? And it's just a testament to the talent that that kind of just ran through this band. And like Eddie Van Halen was, you know, and is still revered as one of the best guitar players out there, hands down. Forever. Not going to argue that, but he was also a conduit for different talent. And it's really interesting to see how this band sort of grew and morphed and changed into different like versions of itself, like throughout, you know, the past 40 years, 30 years.
More than that.
My numbers.
Yeah, no, 40, over 40 years. Yeah, I mean, 1970.
Right, over 40 years. Yeah, and you know, if that's just a way to keep relevant, I don't know, but they did. They did it.
Yeah, they're another band again that has done that, right? To be able to keep that going. I mean, that says something, and obviously it's because of talented musicians. And when you have the best guitar player, one of the best of all time, that doesn't hurt, right? But
no,
yeah, I just never wanted it to turn into like Eddie and Friends, I guess, right? Like that's kind of what I never was hoping. You know?
And it came close.
It kind of felt like it was
it came
just
close.
a little bit, but like I just never wanted it to be that because it could have been real easily, you know. But okay, well, I mean, then it comes down to you're starting Van Halen tomorrow, and you can have either one at the peak of their existence. Which one do you choose? Both are available. They're willing to do it. Who are you picking?
I don't have to think for a second.
Okay, go ahead. Well, why don't we all say it at the same time and we can just release it? 1, 2, 3. David Lee Roth.
Gary David Lee Roth.
Yep.
Hey, well,
David Lee Roth was Van Halen. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Fuck yeah, he was.
Definitely. But you can't. When people slam Van Hagar, it doesn't make any sense to me because it just seems like they haven't listened to anything. Oh, it's just, you know, it's party songs
I agree.
to love songs. But it wasn't all love songs. And at the end of the day, it was Eddie crafting great songs with other great musicians and pushing it in the direction that he wanted because it was his band. So
yeah, and I think that's maybe overshadowed too because he wasn't the lead singer, right? Like if he would have been the lead singer, I think it would have been different. But because of not, I think it changes things, right? But yeah. Well, there it is. It's been put to rest. Then it's over.
Yep.
Yeah. Done.
All right, we want you guys to subscribe, share, and review this podcast. Keep it going, keep it strong, because we're having a great time entertaining you guys with B-Sides and Beers podcast.